I said, I saw Jesus, in baby talk. And my parents were like, okay, they just thought that was cute. And I said, I saw Jesus. He said, everything be all right. And they just kind of looked at each other. They weren't sure if this was just a dream, they didn't understand. They were new Christians. And then I went into explaining, he white robe, gold shiny belt. And they were just kind of looking at each other like, what are these details? And a few hours later, the doctors came in with some pretty incredible news. First of all, when I was in the hospital, they were continually taking my blood. I remember what it felt like when the cart would come in. I could hear it coming in with all the little, equipment, all the little testing they had, and they would prick my fingers over and over every day. In fact, I have some scarring on my fingers from that. So that morning they took blood like normal. And when the doctors came in, Dr. Morris was his name, he came in and he told my parents, I don't really know how to explain this, but all of Monica's blood work this morning came back in completely normal. And my parents just looked at each other like, oh my gosh, like what is going on? Like, this is incredible. We prayed all night, and what Monica told us she saw, and the doctor just said, I have no explanation. None of us at the hospital do, except for this is a miracle. So that was pretty powerful, and that really made a mark on my life. And for years after that, I would see angels, and I would have these visions, and I was one of those kids who would be standing up in church on the church pew just worshiping and praising the Lord. And I also remember and was told that a few years later, I would go around the neighborhood witnessing, knocking on people's doors and witnessing and getting the kids outside and telling them about Jesus and, how awesome heaven would be. And I was just very passionate, just loved the Lord. I mean, I had an incredible experience. Well, unfortunately, even though my parents were Christians, my mom suffered, now I know, with mental illness. She had a severe anxiety disorder. So my dad worked in the mill, and he was gone a lot. He'd work regular hours, and then he'd work a few doubles during the week, which left us kids mainly with my mom. My mom was so anxious, and she would have such paranoia and just fits over the most random things. Like, let's say the sky looks a little stormy. Well, your kids are coming in, like buried downstairs, and you can't come out until maybe the thunderstorm's gone. It was very extreme. Oh, there's a tornado in another state. Well, we're all hunkering down again. Or we're driving down the street and my mom starts to have a panic attack or rushing home in the middle of trying to go somewhere fun, going back home. And then I've also been told that for a few years, my mom was housebound. She literally could not leave the house. So that right there caused a lot of trauma in the children's lives, my life, because it was always like this paranoia, this high anxiety, not knowing what was going to happen next, seeing my mom break down. My mom we couldn't travel.